All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Kathy Lancaster at the Library of Michigan, and I'm so excited to have the Reading League here. Rachel Griffin is with us to speak about the foundations of the science of reading for public libraries. And I'm going to be sharing the handouts in the chat. As we get going, I'm going to let Rachel introduce herself and do a screen share. We will have part two of this call next Tuesday at 2 p.m. as well. So, Rachel, take
Right,
it away.
I shall share my screen, make sure all the right buttons are pressed. Hopefully you're all looking at a sign that says Foundations of the Science of Reading for Library Professionals, Part 1, the beginning. Welcome everybody. I am Rachel. I am coming to you from Pennsylvania today. I have got the chat on, so please let me know in the chat if you can't hear or can't see me. But so far, we've done all the tests, and so far, fingers crossed, it's all working out. Yes, I'm with the Reading League. I've been with the Reading League 3 years now. I'm based in Pennsylvania. Reading League National is based in Syracuse, in New York. And today I'm in Michigan. I tell you, I get around on this camera. But as you can tell, I'm a little far from home. My origins stem from Manchester in the north of England, but been in America 8 years now, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be here with you today. This is the first one I've done for librarians, or sorry, library professionals. So, first of all, I want to start off by saying thank you so much for being here. Usually I'm talking to teachers, and I would say thank you, teachers, for taking time out of your classroom and joining us today. Well, I want to say thank you to librarians for just being there, basically. Thank you, library professionals around the world, for being there and bringing books to me and my family and the students that I've worked with over the years. I could have chosen all kinds of different images to put up here. I just saw this on social media and I thought, this is perfect. Because Jason Schwartzman says, everyone should have a library card. It's like a bicycle for your brain. I thought, yes, yes, it is. I like that analogy because you can have a bicycle, but you also need to be taught how to ride. And that's what we're going to look at today. How to read, what we read, how we can help readers. So, why are we doing it with us? Well, this is a little map of, well, it's not actually an accurate map anymore. We've updated this even more now. There are even more states where the Reading League is reaching out. And, well, we're across the state completely, but there's even more states where we have chapters. We're dealing with locals as well. There's a very good Michigan Reading League chapter, which I'm going to talk about at the end, as my colleague reminded me today that I should let you know how to get into contact with the Michigan Reading League. But yes, here we are. Our mission, we're a non-profit. We are not attached to any programs or selling any books or anything. We do have a bookshop in at the office because there's some good things out there that we want to promote, but we are certainly not pushing anything. We are about awareness, understanding, and use of evidence-aligned reading instruction. So that's what we're going to look at today. The evidence-aligned reading instruction. I'm going to go through the objectives for this very quick hour. In fact, I'm going to have to cut myself off at some times and say, we can't go into the weeds with this, but I'll direct you to where you can find information about this because we've only got an hour. But this is what we're going to do today, looking at the why and how we got here, basically. And then we've got another session next week. I'll give you the outline for that, where we'll go more deeply into what we can do about this. So today it's going to be, what exactly are we talking about? What is the science of reading? How do we get here? This reading achievement crisis, what is it? And yeah, how can we identify it? What are the solutions? I'm going to talk about three anchors, and I'll explain that more. We talk about anchors at the Reading League. Not everybody does. If you talk to other people, they won't know what you mean by the three anchors. It's a Reading League phrase to determine three large bodies of studies that we base a lot of our work on, because there's a lot of studies out there. And we're going to have a quick look at the reading brain. So we're going to do a little bit of brain surgery today. It won't be painful though. Next week, we're going to look at struggling readers. Now we've had a look at what actually goes on in the brain. How can we help engage and encourage those struggling readers at any age or any stage of their development? We're going to talk about book choices as well, and building motivation. Yeah. So often I get questions from teachers: how do I motivate my students to succeed? I'm sorry, it's the other way around. Give them success and they will be motivated to read more. So, how can we build that? By building on that individual success and fluency. So, as I say, the chat is open. I will talk about this. I can do this all day. So I will fill this hour with just me talking, but that's not the point. Please send questions and queries. I might say, oh, we'll come to that later, or we'll come to that next week. But please do put in the chat any questions that you've got, that we can have a look at. So, as I've just started up the slides, I'm going to stop them to show you this video. It's a brief video by the wonderfully Tracy Whedon about how we ended up on this journey with the Reading League. And I want you to watch and think about what you're hearing. Pick out one word or one phrase that resonates with you. So, fingers crossed that this is going to work. Say, please let me know if you can't hear or see. No?
Humankind's most precious treasure is our children, and our future depends on them. We recognize literacy as a fundamental human right that empowers individuals and a society. We also know that grim life outcomes are connected to illiteracy. We are resolved to prevent the collateral damage that is incurred by our students, especially the most vulnerable among them, when adults have limited access to the convergent scientific evidence. Research has yielded proven assessment and instructional practices with which every teacher and leader should be equipped. We believe that providing educators with this knowledge is a moral imperative. We are committed to evidence-aligned reading instruction being scaled with a sense of urgency in a comprehensive and systematic way by multiple stakeholders. We know that our children can be taught to read properly the first time. In a knowledge economy, the currency of the 21st century will be built on the foundation of skilled reading. Students who can read well have a place at the table of opportunity, whether their aspirations lead them to preparation for college or the workforce. We believe in a future where a collective focus on applying the science of reading through teacher and leader preparation, classroom application, and community engagement will elevate and transform every community, every nation through the power of literacy. Join us.
Okay, what's your one word or phrase? Can you pop that in the chat while I get my slides back up?
I'm seeing so many words like evidence-based and human rights.
Powerful stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Imperative.
Yeah. Human right urgency. Stakeholders, yes. You are now stakeholders. You always were stakeholders, but yes. Now the baton is being passed to you. Excellent. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. But as we move on, you may have seen in the top corner of that video, there was a little symbol that we're going to dive into now. Of course, you talked about the science of reading. This video was made for the release of a little purple booklet that we put together, 23, I think it was, with a group of researchers called the Science of Reading Defining Guide. Here it is. We have it in English, we have it in Spanish, we have it in French now. I don't have my French copy yet. But yes, if you want a copy of what a group of eminent researchers and educators got together and put down in this little booklet as this is what this is what the science of reading actually is and isn't, then scan that code. It will be in the handouts as well, and you can get yourself a free e-copy with lots of lovely links to videos like that one. Or you can, as I say, buy this one. We do print this off. But yes, get a copy of this because there was such confusion as to what actually this science of reading is. So here's the definition that these people got together and created. It is a vast interdisciplinary body of scientifically based research about reading and issues related to reading and writing. The research has been conducted over the last 5 decades across the world and is derived from thousands of studies conducted in multiple languages. The science of reading has culminated in a preponderance of evidence to inform how proficient reading and writing develop and why some have difficulty, how we can most effectively assess and teach and therefore improve student outcomes through prevention and intervention for reading difficulties. So, it's a rather wordy way of saying there's a lot of stuff out there, there has been for years, and we can prevent these problems before they actually start. This is a list of what the science of reading is not, which is quite often what I get thrown at me by teachers and people on social media. Oh, you're all about phonics, you. No, it's a body of science, 50 years, over 50 years of research. It's not an ideology, not a philosophy, not political, not a one-size-fits-all approach, not a particular program of instruction, though there's a lot that gets stamped science of reading. We have to look and see if it really is aligned with the evidence. And yes, not a single component such as phonics, but we do a lot of work with teachers on phonics because we found that it's not been included in teacher prep for a long time. So that's why you hear us doing a lot about phonics and phonemic awareness, because we've been asked, what is it? I was never taught this, never part of my teacher prep. So we came about, as I say, 10 years, actually we're celebrating 10 years this year. 10 years ago in Syracuse, around a table in Panera, a group of researchers and mission-focused stakeholders who have been working in isolation saying, this isn't right, this isn't working. I don't know what's wrong, but I can't get this system to work for the students in front of me. These kids aren't learning to read. What can we do? So the Reading League came together to help get that message out there. As I say, we love doing things like this and sending information. There's lots of information on the website. I'll show you later. Much as we possibly can do, we do for free, and we want you to share it. When we talk about the research, we're talking about these areas. All these areas are involved in the science of reading. So it's multifaceted research, as it says, from around the world in different languages, from different specialities. Not all, over the last 50 years coming to exactly the same conclusion, but certainly working in the same direction, coming to a convergent theory of what was actually going on in the reading brain. So all these areas, unfortunately, as I say, some of them are in silos. We've got to get these people to talk to each other. We've got to get this information out there. So we as a society, the Reading League nonprofit, exists to try and get that information out of the silos and into the hands of people that can use it, just like you. So that's what we're doing today, very quickly. Another thing that often comes up, oh, here we go again. It's a pendulum swing. I've heard this before. We've been here before. The approach has been here before and changed. The research hasn't. The research has been around and working on the same theories, the same consensus over this long period. In fact, if you could see the walls behind me, I have got two posters. One of them is a phonics poster from American Classroom of 1891. And one of them is an alphabet poster. I had to write this down because I remember 1750 BC was when we first started putting letters and sounds together for writing down our speech. So, yes, okay, we are going back to something we've done before, but because it worked, there's no pendulum swing in the research. The consensus is this is how the reading brain wants to work. This is how we can support it. So that's a very speedy run through of the science of reading. Anything unclear, cloudy that I've gone through too quickly that anyone wants to shout out and say, hold on, please explain. I'll check the chat.
I'm not seeing any hands either.
No, nobody's come on the mic and shouted at me yet. You're very welcome to do that as well. Excellent. Right. So we've established this is what we're looking at, a wide body of research. Why are we looking at it? Our next point of interest, the reading achievement crisis. Okay, guys, this is where it gets depressing. We know from our National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP report, the nation's report card. This one I'm showing you is the fourth grade one. Oh, let me remove that. You can see the top. There we go. So here is the fourth grade NAEP from 92 to 22 I've got there. I just want you to have a look at that. And what exactly am I looking at when I look at reading achievement? Can you pop in the chat there what you notice looking at this chart?
I'll just read some of these off for our recording. I'm seeing Alex says it hasn't changed much. Jocelyn says seems to be getting a little bit better. Catherine says slow growth, stagnation.
Stagnation's a good word for it, isn't it?
Diane, it never goes above 40.
Yeah. So yes, we topped out at 37% of fourth graders reading. Woohoo! 37%. So how many are not reading at grade level? Yeah? That's I know we're not more mathematicians here, but even I can figure that one out. That is not good. That is not good, and it hasn't been for a while. We do have contributing factors like, yes, we did have a pandemic. But it didn't actually make that much of a blip in our figures there, did it? We were not consistently getting good scores before the pandemic. So, yes, we have to take into consideration, yeah, the pandemic and how we slid through that and slid back through that. But we have not consistently achieved good reading scores, certainly not in the last 30 years. If you want to go into more detail about states, I noticed someone's in the chats talking about Michigan ranks 44th in the nation. There we go. Yeah, this is on the handout. Here's some more resources so you can go into your state. You can go into, there's a podcast there to talk about what exactly the NAEP means. But yes, just looking at that for fourth grade over the last 30 years. If we want to change something, we're going to have to change how we're going about it. And of course, yeah, it's not going to happen overnight, but we do need to do something. As we noticed at the beginning, there is a sense of urgency because we know statistically that if we have that many students who are not reading, I shouldn't say students to you, children, adolescents, adults who are not reading, yeah? What does this mean? There's illiteracy and there's underliteracy as well. Underemployment, poverty, incarceration. There's a lot of information out there on the school to prison pipeline. Goes through the reading classroom, unfortunately. There's a wonderful video on the Reading League site from Stephen Dykstra about trauma. And he quite clearly says that we can't take away the trauma. These students come to us with trauma. What can we do about it? We can give them trauma resistance by teaching them to read, teaching them to express themselves, to escape a little bit, to see other people that have gone through similar experiences in books, to give them a way out. So all these quite depressing things we're looking at if we keep on this trajectory of illiteracy and underliteracy. We need to help these students, and we can all be part of that helpline. Okay, let's move on to the research. Okay, so this is the research. It's going to be in, say, in those handouts. If I were you, if you only printed out one page, it would be this one, because this is a great one to have nearby, the anchors. So when we talk about the anchors, we're talking about 3 documents, or 3 images rather. It's so much easier to put visuals with them, but they represent researchers, enormous researchers. They help us with all these things. This is how we ground our understanding. So our 3 research documents, we're going to go from simple to more complex, as we should always do. The first one we're going to look at, our first anchor, is called The Simple View of Reading. This was a research document that was published in 1986. It had years of research before that, of course. It was published by Goff and Tumner and produced this lovely visual of WR times LC equals RC. Because so often we think, okay, what's the purpose of reading? To understand. Reading comprehension. Excellent. How do we teach reading comprehension? How do we get better at reading comprehension? You do reading comprehension. Reading comprehension is a product. It is a product, and it is also a process. You can see at the end there, we've got RC, our reading comprehension comes about when you do 2 things. WR, you recognize the words. You can pull those words off the page. You know the sounds and the symbols that go with them, so you can recognize that word and again. It also involves LC, language comprehension. It's no good having a word if you don't know what it means. What does this word mean? What does it mean in this context? What does it mean in this sentence, this paragraph? What do I need to know about this word to be able to understand this whole thing? So, our simple view of reading states, to be a good reader, you must have both word reading and language comprehension to get that final golden award of reading comprehension. Now, it's represented as a equation because you cannot have one without the other. And that's how we have unfortunately gotten into this mess a little bit, by focusing too much on one element rather than the other. You notice it's a multiplication. Here comes the math. If you're really good at picking the words off the page, I'll give you a 1 for that. But you have no idea what they mean, no background knowledge, no vocabulary, or it's a different language, you're an English language learner, that equals 0. You're not going to understand the text. Do the other side, yeah? You've no idea what the words mean, but you've had lots of stories read to you, lots of information, got an encyclopedic knowledge of dinosaurs. You still won't be able to read that text if you can't pick the words up. Equally, a little bit of something, a little bit of that. Yeah, still even less, because you're going to be focusing on the words and on the understanding. And that one I like because I used to write IEPs. I used to say 4 out of 5 times, you've got it. Not with reading. Point 0.8, 4 out of 5 times is not high enough. Yeah, we've got to get a lot better, more secure, more mastery of both word recognition and language comprehension to get to reading comprehension. So that's our first research document. And people say that's a great place to start. That gives me a real understanding why these students aren't comprehending. I can think of a child now that actually was quite good at this bit, but wasn't good at that bit, or had a little bit of word recognition, a little bit of language comprehension, but need help on both sides to get to reading. But I want to unpack that even further with our second anchor. This is a visual called Scarborough's rope. Well, the Scrabber created this to give a little more understanding of what exactly was involved in those 2, 3 circles. So I want you to imagine this is sort of unboxing of the simple view. So she flipped it over. She put language comprehension first because she said, we learn about language from very, very early on. Before we start talking about reading and writing, we're speaking. All reading and writing is based on oral language as well. So language comprehension, we start off first, and then word recognition we come to a little bit later. So let's start with language comprehension. She said it's like a rope. And if we pull apart the strands, we will find under language comprehension, there are strands to do with background knowledge, information about facts and concepts and things. There's information about vocabulary, all the words you need to talk about dinosaurs or under the sea or mechanics or what have you. There's also a strand on language structure. We need to understand the structure of our language, the grammar, yeah, how sentences fit together. What makes a sentence? Punctuation as well. How many people have you heard reading that just don't understand you have to breathe when you read? That's what punctuation's for. Verbal reasoning. Lots of work I did in high schools on inference and metaphors. Oh my goodness, did we spend a long time on those? It's great. It needs to be done, but you can't understand verbal reasoning, inference and metaphors if you haven't got the background knowledge, the language structure, and the vocabulary as well. So definitely need some of that, but build on the others as well. And of course, literacy knowledge. Knowledge of different types of books, different types of layout. We even come into digital layout now, how a screen is set out, how an e-reader is set out, differently from an actual book. So all those areas are part of our language comprehension. And all those areas are the ones that we need, and we'll talk about books more next week, but these are the rich books we need to build those areas. Yeah, fiction, non-fiction, lovely picture books. These are the ones we need lots of to build those skills. In schools, right from kindergarten, these will be taught individually. And then they start to build together. As you build more strategies and you get more understanding, these become more strategic in your reading and build towards that skilled reader. Over here, we're building up fluency, and right at the end here is our end product, our reading comprehension, our adult reader who can comprehend because they have all these elements. On the other side, word recognition. These are the ones that do not come quite so readily. These are the ones that are going to need to be taught and practiced. This is where we fall down sometimes because we don't have enough opportunity to practice these. So the first one is our phonological awareness. Do these students know the sounds of the English language? We've actually got 46 sounds in English. Now, we often say there are 5 vowels, there are 5 vowel letters, there are 18 vowel sounds. So, we need to make sure that they know all the different sounds. Can they spot them in syllables, in rhyming stories? And then go down to the individual units, the phonemes. Once we've got sounds, we want to match those up to symbols. That's where reading and writing start to take place, where the sounds come together with the symbols, which we call phonics. Alphabetic principle, those 40 odd, 44, 46, honestly, linguistics can't decide. There's so many accents and variables that they're still arguing as to how exactly how many sounds we have. But we go for about 42 to 44 in general American. So match those up with the 26 letters of the alphabet, you've got the alphabetic principle. Then we start putting them together, because in English we don't have all those cedillas and fancy accents that other languages have. So we start putting our letters together in digraphs and trigraphs and vowel teams and blends and things to get that sound symbol correspondence. So that's built up in our decoding strand. And then underneath that, we have a strand called sight recognition of familiar words. Now, just one moment, I want to take the word sight and work on it. Because the word sight word has been hijacked by some publishing houses to sell lots of books. Now, bless them, Dolce and Fry did as a wonderful service creating lists of high frequency words. Words that are frequently heard and seen when you are working with different grades, different ages. But publishing houses said, right, come on, we're going to put those in a list, we're going to publish them, and everyone's got to just automatically, by osmosis, look at them, learn them by sight. Yeah. All words go in through your eyes by sight. Every word wants to be a sight word by that definition. This is what we call sight vocabulary. It is the group of words that you have matched sound symbol, sound symbol, sound symbol, word, got it. I'm going to keep it. It's going to be in my brain forever until dementia sets in. And then, yeah, that is your sight vocabulary. So this depends, your sight recognition of familiar words depends on your phonemic awareness, your phonological awareness, and your decoding. So these elements all work on sounds, symbols, matching those, building up your understanding, yeah, on that principle of the alphabetic sound symbol way we read and write. Those become increasingly automatic the more you're exposed to them, the more you practice them, with books that focus on sounds, symbols, spelling patterns, what we call decodable readers. And we'll dive into those again, as I say, more next session. But these books are the ones that are needed for that type of reading, that type of practice. The more we do that, the more automatic it becomes, the more least we have to worry about it. Yeah, if we get this established pretty early, we can spend so much of our brain power on the beauty of the language, the background knowledge of the vocabulary, etc. But together, as you see, they build into fluent reading. There are more areas of language comprehension than word recognition. It does not make it more important. They both have to happen at the same time. When you think about it, nobody reads a book by going, oh, I'm going to decode all the words to the end of this paragraph, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to understand it. It has to come in parallel. It has to work together. Otherwise, as I say, you're staggering that reader. So, Scarborough's rope dives into those different elements and breaks it down. This is everything we need to help our students, our children, our readers become fluent, confident readers. One more anchor. Here we go. This one's going back to the 80s again. There's a lot of research done in the 80s that just didn't get out into our colleges, didn't get out into our teacher training, unfortunately. We're getting there now with your help and get this message out there. So this one is called the four-part processing model for word recognition. So I want you to think about your brain. Have I got my brain? Yeah. Here we go. Your brain has two hemispheres. You are not using 10% of it. You are not using only the left or the right side. You might have preferences. It's like learning styles. You might have preferences, but everyone's brain is working all the time. So there are different parts of it that work at different times. So we're going to take away half of it. We're going to put away the right hemisphere, and we're going to focus on the left for now. So the left hemisphere is where reading starts to happen. Your eyes see something on the page. They send that information through your eyes. Reading does not happen in your eyes. It's just a channel. It goes into your brain, and you see there something squiggly on the page. Your brain says, okay, yeah, that's a symbol for something. And if you know dingbats, you might be able to read that. Personally, I don't. So I cannot read that. I do not know the code that goes with those symbols. I do recognize them though. I see three of them are triangles. One is an arrow, one is a rectangle. So I recognize them as symbols, but I can't do anything with them. They are actually going to the back of my brain. Oh, hold on. To the orthographic processor at the very back of the left-hand side. It's the bit of the brain that we first have to recognize as, say, symbols, pictures, faces. And when we're a baby and we're looking at mama's face, it doesn't matter if we see this bit or this bit or this bit or this bit. We all know it's mama's face. Equally with the triangles. Doesn't matter which way they're pointing, what size they are. I know they're triangles. We hijack that bit of the brain to put that letter N in, because there's nowhere in the brain that is actually specifically made for reading. So that visual area is hijacked when we put the alphabet in there. We put those squiggles on the page. My brain looks at it. It says, oh, it's a symbol. I've seen that. I've seen it in some names and on posters and things. It's the letter. Hold on. Now there's three that look a bit like this. There's the N, there's the M, and there's the H. So I have to decide which one that is in the orthographic processor at the back of my brain. Once I've figured out which one it is, I throw it to the front of my brain to match it to a sound. So you're actually going across the brain to put sound and symbol together. Now you can see it's a sound because it's got those virgles around it. Now again, I said there was 26 letters stored at the back for your alphabet. There's 40 odd sounds at the front. I'm going to have to figure out which one this is. Is it that the Yeah, they're very close together. So a beginner reader goes backwards and forwards trying to figure out what exactly this sound and this symbol mean. And that's why beginner readers just look so stressed and so slow going, they're thinking, they're going through all those networks, firing off all those neurons to build sounds and symbols together. So that's your phonics. Once you've grabbed that, put it together, you want to figure out what it is. There's never one just by itself. There's going to be more and more. So you go backwards and forwards, pick up all the letters, and if the word that they make is already in your sight vocabulary, you're going to read it. You can't help yourself. I'm going to put a word up on the screen now. I don't want you to read it. You can't not, can you? Yeah? If you know it, you're going to read it. You know that from all those visuals on buses and things. Yeah, you automatically go there and you read them. Good advertising practice. But yes, once I've got the word, I check my meaning processor. That is either right or left. We start jumping around now, figuring out what this actually means. And run has an enormous amount of possibilities. So I'm going to have to go to my context processor to figure out what it means in this context. So at this point, we're using, yes, all areas of the brain. We start on the left. We go all over the brain where we stored all these options. It's like a drop-down menu of all the options of run to figure out what it is. So as you can see, the brain starts off down here, sound symbol. Yeah, that's what it wants to do. So we have to be very careful when we start saying to readers, are you stuck? Look at the picture. Guess what it might be? The brain doesn't want that. The brain wants to know what are the sounds, what are the symbols, excuse me, and then I can start figuring out what the meaning is, what the context is. So that's our third anchor. Ooh. Excuse me. To add to the other two that give us our idea of what exactly our reading brain is looking for. Yes, you can't help read all the signs and the subtitles on things. My mother has to have subtitles on it. It drives me mad. I have to read them. So, reading brains. Let's dive a little bit further into this reading brain. It's fascinating stuff. And this is one of the books that we do like. It's not a beach read, but it is a good one. It's a great way of tackling this understanding. Stanislav Dehaene. If you want to Google his brain trust, he's got like a 7-minute video where he explains this in a very sexy French accent. Yes, his research on the brain, fascinating. It is simply not true that there are hundreds of ways to learn to read. When it comes to reading, we all have roughly the same brain that imposes the same constraints and the same learning sequences. We may have preferences, but the physical structure of our brain is roughly the same. If we had time, we'd talk about dyslexia and developmental learning disorder, which do actually throw that spanner in the work. But it's something that we can work with our students because they have roughly the same brain. We know this from the research that has been done on functioning magnetic resonance imaging. You can look at the oxygen running around the brain and see where those neurons are firing. So if we have a quick look at one such scan, this is a brain that was taken, or an image of the brain that was taken. So the students read while they're in the MRI, and they see where the oxygen runs. Now, as we said, we want it to be left-hand side of the brain here, especially down here where our symbols are, over here where our sounds are, some activation in the middle here. That would be lovely, but what do we have? More activation on the right-hand side. Yeah, that's pulling the brain away from the words on the page to the picture to possibly staring into space and trying to remember something. Yeah. So this student had a scan, and then 3 months later, after doing some structured, evidence-aligned practice, yeah, much more happening over here. This is what we want to see. So we do have the possibility of change. This is not a fixed thing. If someone is struggling, they do not need to stay struggling. We have an incredibly plastic brain that we can help our students build better neurons by giving them more effective and efficient ways of going about reading. We have to be careful, though, that we're all pulling in the same direction. I love this image of the knitting. Yes. It's no good if one person is pulling in one direction, saying, oh, yes, we'll do this kind of a reading with the child, and then they go to an intervention or a reading group, and there's a different way of doing it there. No, we all need to be knitting and not unraveling each other's work. So when we're looking at reading, we want to build efficient neural circuitry for efficient reading. What does that mean? Well, for teaching and learning, it means there's no shortcuts. That's what we're trying to do by dropping phonics. It's very tricky phonics. It takes time, it takes practice. So let's just let them, read for the joy of reading, the love of reading. Oh, you can't love what you can't do, people. It's very tricky to love something that actually makes you physically, you sit down and read and you think, I can't do this and I'm going to get it wrong. So, yeah, we have to dig in and do the hard work. But it can be broken down, it can be built up. We go from the simple to the complex and we practice, practice, practice. So, systematically building as we go. What are the challenges I said? The phonemes, so many different sounds, so many different letters. Automaticity. Yes, we've got to build it to a point where they're automatic. How quickly can you read this? That's rapid, but that's not automatic. If we read something fast, that just means that we can read something fast. We have to be able to read it automatically, which means with a comfortable speed and understanding. A lot of assessments, the students see there's a timer there and they go, oh, I've got to read this fast. And so they just rush through it. But no, automaticity, mastery is what we want. We want to build their abilities so they read at speed that is comfortable and comprehensive. Yes, build up those processing and retrieval speeds. Okay, just go through a few of the misconceptions. Learning to read comes naturally through interactions with text. Again, social media accounts saying, well, the parents aren't reading at home. Yeah. So obviously they're not going to be able to read. I'm sorry, I said to the pediatrician, I played him Mozart since he was born. Why isn't he composing? It doesn't work like that. I have all the beautiful books. Oh my goodness, but oh, it was a fight. So yes, it is not a natural, it's a horrible thing to say, reading is not natural, but it does not occur naturally with enthusiasm, with support. Yes, we can start building up their enthusiasm for it, but yeah, a strength in language comprehension, well, this builds on that. Yeah, a strength in one area will compensate for a deficit in another. No, we have to have those two things running at the same time. So, I have just thrown an awful lot of information at you. And yes, I really do have just 10 minutes left to finish this off. And I see a question I will come to in a second. So just have a moment and think about everything that's just been thrown at you. What does it mean for you? Can you think of one area, a strategy, or an approach within your sphere of influence that you can, maybe not tomorrow, but soon start thinking about, and certainly after we've done next week's session as well? Is there something that resonates with you? If you want to pop into the chat, something that's made you think today, ah, I should look into that. I want to know more about that. I could work on that.
So I'm seeing share this info with parents of babies at story times, um, or other parents. Jen will be reading The Reading Brain.
It's good. I say it's not the easiest, but it's good. He writes very well.
Megan wants to show the Scarborough rope.
I've seen people create big displays of it using plastic tablecloths to
Great
do
idea.
different colored ropes.
It's a great idea.
It's a nice visual as well, yes.
Posting it in their blog or the and Rachel, just so you know, the ECRR is Every Child Ready to Read acronym that I've mentioned to you.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, some fantastic things here. Yes.
Hmm.
Have we clicked save the chat?
Yeah, I save it every time.
Excellent. Excellent. There's some really good ideas here. Fantastic. Right, I'm going to move on. Keep those coming. I'll show you some of the places that I've got suggestions for additional resources. And I know I've got one question to come back to on phonics there. I shall do that in a moment. So, additional resources. First of all, yes, look at Michigan, the Reading League Michigan. See, it's not phonetic. Why is it not Michigan? Honestly. So, that is, I know, I'm going to go to the next slide. There we go. Here is a slide from the Reading League Michigan's web page. They actually have a summit coming up, a one-day conference at Lansing Community College in February. So if you have the opportunity, you can go and see. Oh, there we go, Steve Dykstra. Yes, and we mentioned him talking about trauma. He also does a wonderful talk on data. I don't know which one he'll be doing. Angie Hanlon is a lovely lady who speaks about instructional preparation for admins and structuring how to do science of reading. And Sonia Cabell I've never met, but she's some wonderful literature on, I've got one of her books actually, on English language learning. So three great speakers you've got there at your local Michigan chapter. But generally they will have resources on their website. They will have other things going on throughout the year. Grab your copy of The Science of Reading. Say you can order one from our website if you want to put this in someone's hands and just sort of slide it across the desk in front of them saying, oh, you might want to look at this page here. Or you can get the free ebook. Then on our YouTube channel, there are many things on the YouTube channel, but there are these 4 videos that help explain those anchors that we just looked at. So the simple view of readings there, the 4-quadrant model, how the brain processes reading, multi-tiered systems support, that's how reading is done within schools. And then, all-time favorite, have you listened to the Solder Story podcast? That is real wake-up call for me, certainly, when I heard that. If you're struggling with people who are saying, oh, I can't get my kid off their screen, never mind into a book. During COVID, the Reading League came out with these reading buddies YouTube videos. So there's a whole selection. If they're going to be on a screen, we can put them on a reading buddies screen and they can look at a team of people looking at all those different sounds. It started, to say, 3 years, no, more than that ago now, with just phonemic awareness and phonics, and has gone all the way up to morphology and vowel teams and all kinds of things. Then we have on the Reading League main page, there is a tab called the Compass. Now, when I took a shot of it, it was on the pediatrician's page, but there's all these different entrance points into the Compass for administrators, teacher prep, English language learners, parents, no, families and caregivers it's called, The families and caregivers one we'll be diving into a bit more next week, and that has a lot of information for parents and it links to several library pages that we are going to be looking at next week. And then finally, you can be involved or find out what's happening with a newsletter from the Reading League. And next week I will have some more resources for you as well, but that's a good starting point. Now I'm going to go back to the chat for our last few minutes. One question was, when is a good time does the science have a good time for phonics? No,
I
no.
just quoted it there. Does the
Oh,
science say there's a good age to be working hard on phonics?
thank you.
Yes.
Um, The science says the pre-K years are about sounds. So if you've got people coming to you saying, "Oh, my kid's, in pre-K and I want to do some phonics," there are students that can do phonics in pre-K, but it's so much easier if they know sounds first. So songs, chants, rhymes. What's the first sound? What rhymes with? All those little activities are going to bring up their phonemic awareness, which will then make it so much easier in kindergarten to attach phonics. And then kindergarten through second grade is the best window for phonics, but it does not stop there. The English language is very complex. Third, fourth, fifth, you're still learning sound symbol combinations for different spellings, and you will for the rest of your life as well. So there is a window of kindergarten to second grade for most students that is the best time, but it's not the only time. Absolutely. Other questions? That's a suggestion. Yes, flannel boards, like it. Are there any resources? I would suggest you go to the Compass, to the English Language Learners tab on the Compass, Megan. I don't know what's there in Arabic, but there are links to places for just that. Sounds, yeah. We will
Um,
talk about decodables next week. Yeah.
yep. I was just going to read that question. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Again, this is an area that we get a lot of comments on. So yes, we will dive into that next week. Jack Hartman is wonderful. Yes.
And next week's uh will be recorded. We're going to have a little more interaction next week. A little more chance. I think we're going to do a breakout room,
Yes, it won't just be me talking. So
more hands-on. But this has been great information, Rachel. I forgot to mention at the top that this is we are able to host this webinar thanks to the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So I have put a survey in the chat there. If folks can please complete that today, and then there'll be a chance to complete. Well, it's actually the same survey for both weeks. You can mark if you're here next week as well. But any other questions for Rachel? All right. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for your time with us today.
you're very welcome.
And I'm excited that that workshop is less than a half mile from where I'm sitting right now.
Perfect.
So I'm looking forward to
Well,
that.
if you go and see Angie and say, Rachel says hi.
I will do that. Awesome.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much, everyone that was here that is going to be watching this recording as well. Thank you for all you do. I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Yes, that'll be great. See you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.